Hashanah Tova. Throughout this high holiday season, we are studying the famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. In a place where there is no humanity, try to be human. The inspiring message from Rabbi Navarez last night and Andy Mayer's stirring "Strive to Live" set the stage. It is a beautiful and straightforward text, and yet I have been struggling with it for weeks. Today, on this first day of 5,781 years of life and tradition, we are all struggling as never before, at least in our collective lifetimes, with life and death, sickness and health, and the privilege, necessity, and the difficulty of learning a new way to live. How do we experience each day in a way that keeps us and those we love, even those we don't know, safe? These are today's challenges of being human, the challenges of making choices and sacrifices. In today's Torah reading, we heard the Akedah, the story of God commanding Abraham to take his beloved son Isaac to the mountain and to sacrifice him there. To generations of Jews, this is a very disturbing text. It is about choice and sacrifice, but it begs some impossible questions. Why would God ask Abraham to sacrifice his son as a burnt offering? And what kind of man was Abraham that he would obey such a command? This decision to sacrifice Isaac would have sacrificed the entire future nation of Israel. So what indeed is the moral of the story, and does it help us face some of the sacrifices being asked of us today? It is through this lens that we are looking at our Mishnah this morning. These days are demanding much more from us. Some of the demands are not terribly challenging. Wear a mask, wash your hands. Others may be a little more difficult. Stay at home whenever possible. Avoid taking unnecessary trips or attending large gatherings. Mask up even when you see family members or friends with whom you do not have continual contact. These demands, though more upsetting, don't seem so difficult. And how large a sacrifice is it really if it protects human life? Some would say, and are still saying, and demonstrating that these demands on their persons are too difficult to keep and infringe on their personal lives. And then there are the big sacrifices. Postpone your wedding for at least a year. Stay home and see no one if your health is compromised. No trips to Israel, or really anywhere. So many would have loved to be with family and friends, spending the high holidays together this year. Others are being asked to sacrifice so much more. Many of our own Beth Israel members are on front lines of the pandemic, working in hospitals, clinics, in schools, preschools, and elder care facilities, in supermarkets and retail stores, interacting with people who are ill and with people who may be ill but don't yet know it. These brave people are literally putting their lives at risk, potentially sacrificing their health and lives for the common good. For us, we owe them much more than our gratitude. The story of the Akedah begs us to answer for ourselves. Was Abraham right or wrong to follow God's command? Was it an unjust command? And what are we to make of Abraham's not telling Sarah, his wife, let alone not asking her what she thought? Our modern day sensibilities would tell us we share all major life decisions and events with our spouses. And of course, there's the ultimate question of taking the life of another. In this case, the life of an innocent child who had no say at all. If you believe that every choice is a sacrifice, then Abraham's struggle is akin to the choices that so many in our community are facing. I think of those brave first responders and medical professionals who are among the first to put themselves in harm's way to serve and protect and save others. I think of the risk they took not only for themselves, but also for their families. Many are still giving up so much, bedtimes with their children and long visits with elderly parents. Those generations, often lacking the ability to truly understand the world situation, share the sacrifice. That same scene is being repeated in the homes of school teachers and so many other essential workers. Every choice is a sacrifice. Our story of the Akedah leaves all of us troubled because we want to say on Isaac and Sarah's behalf, no, this sacrifice is too much. We recently learned that it was known at the beginning of the pandemic how lethal the coronavirus was, and the American public was not informed. In fact, the danger was downplayed. Tens of thousands of Americans did not have to suffer and die. Thousands of families should never have had to witness their loved ones gasping for breath, going on ventilators, and eventually dying alone in hospitals they themselves could not enter because of the COVID restrictions. In the past, I have been reluctant as a rabbi to urge and to share outrightly what I often believe. These last months, as we have dealt with an unparalleled pandemic, I have drawn of the wisdom of my rabbis and teachers, past and present, even as I have tried to role model for others. And I believe that my reticence to speak out must change. We don't have time for moderation and subtlety. We all need to speak up. It is a choice that represents a sacrifice to me as I risk the disappointment or wrath of someone who would disagree. But the times demand more of all of us. What will you sacrifice this year? Our Kol Nidre prayer allows us to be forgiven for missing the mark, the aspirations and goals we seek to achieve. We have nothing to fear then, so it is time. First, vote. Do not be complacent. It is our civic duty to ensure that we are all registered, that our 18-year-olds and college students are registered. Find the safest way for yourself to vote and find ways for the elderly and infirm to vote as well. There's still time to be involved. And the truth is, it's not such a big sacrifice. One of the sweetest stories and lessons of my life comes from my father, Zichrono Livracha, of blessed memory. Many years ago, during the presidential election of 1988, I lived in Israel. The telephone, of course, was down in the bomb shelter and ringing literally off the hook. Racing down flights of stairs and entering through heavy doors, the voice on the other end of the phone was my father. "Dad, is everything okay? Is there an emergency? Are you okay?" Silence on the other end, and then my father's question, "Did you take your absentee ballot to the American consulate yet?" "That's why you called?" I said. "Yes," he said. "I'm asking you, did you vote yet?" "Well, yes, Dad. And by the way, you know, it costs a fortune to call Israel." "Well, it did then." "I don't care," was his answer. "It's your obligation, and I don't care who you voted for. Bye." That was it. The command to use my voting privilege, no matter where I was in the world. It's worth a call and a conversation about one of the most important privileges we have. And two, engage with our Beth Israel community in the most active way possible. 5781 is not an off year. If you're already online for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, It will be easy for you to join our Erev Shabbat services on Friday nights. Take classes with us and peruse our website for our many offerings. We must, after the past 6 months of shock and grieving, with more to come, move forward into life and into Judaism. And third, share and sacrifice your time, money, heart, and soul to make the world better. Help pay the rent for someone who lost their job, or offer to pick up and deliver food for those unable to shop. Give of yourself to this place, this makom, this synagogue, this city, and this world. Your love and belief in yourself and each other is where sacrifice becomes healing. And it is time for all of us to begin to heal. In the Akedah, Abraham hears God's message through an angel or messenger. And through this enlightenment, Isaac is saved, as are the generations of the Jewish people. We, at this moment in our lives, are hearing the cries in our nation, the cries of suffering and hard-driving messages we are receiving to use our civic rights to help others live safely and to make a difference in our world. God has given each of us the understanding of and the willingness to sacrifice for each other. Now we must use that understanding to bring light to the dark space where there is no humanity. That is what it means to be human.